Holy crap, man. Can you believe we're here?
I know it's been anticipation like all week.
Man. So welcome everybody to the first installment, the maiden voyage of the Slade with Flowers podcast. My name's Arnold Flowers. I'm joined by my son, Julian.
Pleasure to be here, Arnold.
You're really going to call me Arnold?
Yeah, well, we're in a professional setting, you know what I mean? We'll just say dad.
You can call me dear old dad.
All right.
So, again, thank you for joining us on this maiden voyage. This has been a passion project for me as it relates to a long time. I wanted to bring Julian on the ride with me because he's probably the one that heard me talking about this the most. And the inspiration for this was really we would be driving or, we'd be just, hanging around in the house and, we would talk about a concept and, we would say, oh, you know what? That'd be really cool if we put that in a podcast. That'd be a cool episode for a podcast. And then it would just
Kind of
flitter
start
off
off,
into the ether.
yeah.
So, this is going to be something where, we're going to be releasing it. I won't tell you when we're going to be releasing it because I don't want anybody to go and rob my house because we won't be there during that time. We in terms of recording, sorry, not releasing, we will be releasing it on Saturday morning. So it's going to be weekly Saturday mornings, 9:00. And the reason that we want to do that is, we wanted this to be something that, you can listen to when you're cleaning the house, walking the dog, just doing your thing and relaxing. We're looking for this to be, some very lighthearted fun. It's not going to be Julian and I every week. We will have a host of people who will be here, a different rotation of individuals who will be here. And, what we're really trying to do is, get you to the point where, we introduce you to something as it relates to music or TV or movies or, pop culture, leave it with something that you can, say, hey, that was pretty cool, or hey, I'd like to learn more about that. Really that is, the inspiration and the reason behind this passion project. So I thought, for the first episode, we wanted to talk to Julian, interview him, but we wanted to take a different take, and you'll find as you, listen to people around this table, they have passion projects and they're passionate about things. You'll find that everybody who sits here is passionate about, one or two things. Julian is passionate about music.
Yep.
And what I wanted to do was not only talk about music, talk about his journey as it relates to music. And really talk about, the fact that if you had noticed, Julian is biracial. His mother is Italian and his father is black, of course. And, when we were talking about conceptually, what this particular podcast was looking like, we wanted to look at, Julian's development and his journey in terms of discovery of music, and how that has come along the lines of his own racial identity as it relates to music. So, Julian, let's kind of start off with, how it all started. We called it the Wonder Years when we were starting. So, why don't you talk about your, most recent, your earliest recollection
of music in general
and what that meant to you?
Well, it would always start off with, I remember my dad would always drive me home from my grandmother's house, and we'd always have a different song playing. If it came to Nas or Slum Village, any kind of rap, or it would be like classic rock or even the Pixies, alternative rock. It was just a lot of different types of music. And I found even when I'd sit in the car with my mom, music would always be playing. That was like a constant. I mean, sometimes it would be MSNBC, but most of the
time. With your mom?
No, with you.
Okay.
But most of the time it would be music. So I found when I look around at all my classmates, did all have a passion, if it was in terms of art, sports, music, anything like that. And I just felt I needed an outlet to channel myself in and find my passion. So that's how my love initially for music started, just due to the fact that I was always surrounded by it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that parallels a lot of how I was raised on music.
Yep.
I've kind of told you that our house growing up was the central hub. And I either had my dad listening to jazz, my mom listening to Motown, or my cousin listening to new wave, or my brother listening to reggae or my sister listening to, Denise Williams or, something along those
A
lines.
lot of different outlets is what
Yeah.
you mean of discovering music.
Exactly. So it allowed me to be, really well-rounded in terms of, my music education and my love for music. And I think that really attributed to why my taste is so diverse.
Same here.
and why I'm always kind of pushing, to look at, who is the new artist and what is the new sound.
Yeah.
So given that you had, this exposure of all of this, music, is there a particular decade that, really stood out to you in terms of one that, you really gravitated to?
I would say in terms of what I listen to and sheer influence on the genres of today, I would honestly say the 70s. Like, just due to the fact that since my musical taste is diverse, I can really find that in the 70s when it comes in terms of rock, like Boston, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, stuff like that. But it also goes into Steely Dan, Roy Ayers, and Fleetwood Mac. There's so many different groups. And I just feel like back then in the 70s, music was less focused on appearance and was more focused on what the music sounds like, which is more in line with what I think of music.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that because, if you think of, Steve Miller,
Yeah.
nobody knew what Steve Miller looked like. 'Cause
Exactly.
It was before videos. If you look at Boston's albums, Boston had, all of their albums were just a spaceship on it.
You don't know what they
kind of
look
thing,
like, right? The whole
So,
time.
Yeah, it's a good point. So, what was, in terms of your journey now from going to listening to playing music?
Yeah.
What really inspired you to pick up a guitar?
Well, it was one of those things where when I'd listen to the radio all the time, I would hear pop music or just whatever's on the radio. And I think to myself, whenever I'd hear rock, I was like, there's something that just sounds different about this and more raw and musical. So whenever I'd hear stuff like Zeppelin or the Beatles on Q107 in the car or whatever, it would just really inspire me to start and just say, listen, like, I need a passion, something to channel myself in, and this really speaks to me. You know what I mean? So I decided to pick up the guitar because it just seems like a good entry instrument. A lot of people pick up either the guitar or piano, and I thought guitar would be more in line with the rock and roll background that I had.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I'm for those of you who don't know, I'm a huge sports fan. Played and watched sports, so when I had a son. Naturally, I thought, this was going to be the individual who was either going to play sports or watch sports with me. I can tell you that Julian's not inclined in the very least in terms of sports.
Yeah, not really my thing.
And I remember, when we had tried everything, hockey, basketball,
T-ball,
football, everything.
Yeah.
And then your mom finally looked at me and said, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
So, but when you said, I think you were 10, and you said, hey, I want to play guitar. We kind of looked at each other and we're like, okay, well, rent an amp, little small
Come
amp.
to a compromise here, you know what I mean?
Little small guitar, and we'll say,
yeah.
we'll just see kind of what happened. And it really, took off. So in terms of your influences then, from a music standpoint, I know, I dread top 5, countdowns. I dread that stuff. But I think it's interesting to just double click on the piece in terms of guitarists and the guitarists that have influenced you the most. So I want to ask you your top 3.
Okay.
But I'd like you to do it in reverse order.
Okay.
Versus
From like 3 to 1. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep.
So, I'd like to hear that because I'd like to hear, who has really influenced you in terms of their musical style. Because, I would say that, where, you've played with Dylan.
There's a big
Dylan
entry
is
with
more
Dylan.
technical in terms of his playing.
Oh, 100%. Just
You
from
know?
even when I met him the first time I jammed out with him, he's like phenomenal guitar player,
Yeah.
but his playing style is very technical, like a lot of rush and stuff like
Right.
that requires a lot of technical
Yeah,
capacities,
like he's
you know?
like, Yui Malmstrom kind of thing in terms
Well,
of
yeah.
a guitarist.
And when he'd play on stage too, he'd be very stagnant, you know what I
Right.
mean, in terms of
So
playing live.
do you think though that you had a combination of not only because your style is very free flowing, but it's still tight.
Yeah.
But when I remember seeing you on stage, you were actually feeling the music from a rhythm standpoint.
Oh,
Do
100%.
you think some of that led to the fact that you were biracial, that you felt music on a different level, or from a rhythm standpoint, like Take us through that.
I would say, yeah, on a cultural level, I did feel that, but I felt that was more naturally instilled in me, which could be because of my culture, right?
Yeah.
The black side of my heritage, you know what I mean, all that. So do you want to get into the top 3 guitarists, or do you want me to expand more on that?
No,
or
absolutely. No, we can talk about your top 3.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that you have an honorable mention. So let's get that out of the way first.
So I would say an honorable mention would be John Mayer. I would say a big thing with John Mayer is when I'd start listening to him, it was more like that kind of stuff, like Gravity, Your Body's a Wonderland. I didn't really think much of it, like I knew a few John Mayer songs, but it was more when I heard a specific song that Dylan actually showed me was called Who Do You Think I Was, right? And I just listened to it. I was like, wow, this kind of sounds like Stevie Ray Vaughan, but more technical than Stevie Ray Vaughan. Okay. That's how I thought about it. So then I started exploring John Mayer and the Blues Trio, which is more his natural blues roots instead of pop music.
Okay.
And I found his style of guitar playing was really similar to mine. I picked up a lot of like John Mayer licks off his YouTube channel in terms of what I could play. And I'm always wowed by how he plays from one style of pop music and goes straight to blues.
Okay.
As another
fair.
style, you know what I mean? So yeah, I would say he's a good honorable mention. Obviously, I saw him live with my mom, which I thought was a really cool experience. It's like he didn't play a lot of the songs I thought he would in terms of blues, but even just his technical guitar prowess in terms of pop was
and I would say I know you're going to go to your top 3, but I can't say I necessarily gravitate to him, but I think one of the songs my only favorite song.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Which one?
Was it 2x4?
3x5.
3x5.
Yeah.
It was close.
Like that song, like when I hear that song, it's so atmospheric. That's a song I can just put on repeat, and I can just keep driving. Just because it feels like, Friday evening, sun setting. Yeah. So anybody pull up 3x5. It's a great song.
It's a good
Can't
song,
say too much else for John Mayer. So anyway, go on with your number 3.
Number 3 pick, I would have to say, is Prince, just due to the fact that, first of all, like I never had thought of Prince as a guitar player, you know what I mean? I thought of him as a singer and everything else, but when you showed me that movie, what was it, Purple Rain?
Yeah.
Was it the Purple Rain film? I thought of him more as a musician after hearing his backstory and everything like that, and less than like a entertainer, like a Michael Jackson or something. Like I know I shouldn't compare those two due to Michael Jackson being less of a musician, but
versus an entertainer.
Yeah, as an entertainer, but that was a big feeling for me of seeing Prince as more of like a guitarist. And even more added to that was me seeing Prince live, right? I was at a very young age, but I didn't realize that Prince was that much of a guitarist. And when I saw him live, I was like, wow. Yeah, this is crazy. You know what I mean?
And I mean, I think that the thing about Prince is, and we've always had this conversation about, an entertainer versus,
musician.
An actual musician.
Yeah, there's a big difference between the two.
And I think he's the one who spawned actually 2 movements. He spawned more black rock, but he spawned neo soul.
Yeah,
because he had a point there where he was like, with Adore and Scandalous.
Yep.
Like that was more of the neo soul that spawned the actual movement.
In terms of influence, he was massive.
Right.
In terms of everything like that in the 80s, having a prominent black figure who could play instruments like that and guitar like that.
Yeah.
Necessarily and be in the mainstream.
And I think somebody who was comfortable with their sexuality.
Yeah,
right?
that
it wasn't one who was kind of like worrying about what was happening. But that was along the lines of Boy George and everybody from a gender standpoint. There was gender fluidity.
Wearing makeup and stuff like that back then was very like the norm.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, people talk about the song Purple Rain, but if you listen to that solo,
at the end of the song?
Yeah, like that solo should be in the Pantheon, right?
For sure.
Or even the bridge that he does on Computer Blue, right?
Yep.
Like I can take that one part and just listen to it over and over again. Yeah. And if somebody said to me, right, like, give me like one piece of a song that was like your childhood, like 1985, 84, that pice, I would play that actual loop for them.
Yeah, no.
So listen to the bridge of Computer Blue. You'll see what I'm saying. So is there anything else you wanted to talk about
Prince?
Yeah.
I would just say overall, I think he's very slept on just in terms of rock stars being primarily like good guitar players in the vision other than Jimi Hendrix or primarily white, Caucasian descent, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of people don't see Prince as a guitar player just because of his pop background, but
right.
I remember listening to the vinyl of Purple Rain and just hearing the guitar licks on Darling Nikki, Computer Blue, you know what I mean? Let's Go Crazy. If you really just listen to that guitar, it's just so solid, you know?
What did you think of the Foo Fighters version of of Darling Nikki?
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I really liked it. It was a unique take on it. They didn't change too much.
Yeah,
But they
yeah,
also
yeah.
kept it the same to its roots, you know?
Yeah, I thought that was a cool homage, and I don't think in terms of the Prince piece you could have escaped that, because me and your mother
Yeah, you guys both love
are
Prince.
huge Prince fans.
Yeah.
So all right, so your number 2.
Number 2, I would say Jimmy Page. Definitely Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. And it was one of those things with Zeppelin. I always loved them because they had such a raw sound, but it wasn't too cluttered. Like I found AC/DC was a little bit too loud and belligerent in terms of they didn't have much structure to them.
Right.
But I found Zeppelin was very structured in terms of their songs, but very fluent. Like I don't know how to describe it. You know what I mean? But listening to Zeppelin, it would always resonate with me because they'd have that hardcore rock influence, but it'd also be a lot of blues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the crunchiness.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, if you listen to Levy.
Yeah, that was going to
know,
be my first example of what I was going to say.
I remember when I first heard Kashmir, it blew my mind
That's what
because it
I'm
was
saying.
like so full, like it was like full.
It felt like an orchestra.
Yeah,
that song. You know what I mean?
Right? And Bonham is one of my top
Your top
five
drummers.
in
Well,
terms
that's
of drummers, right?
going to be on to my point. Like as I listened to Zeppelin as I got older, I was like, if you took one member out of this band, it would not be the same in terms of Robert Plant's vocals or even Bonham's drumming. There's not many drummers at the time that could replace Bonham.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, Jimmy Page ultimately, like, whenever I'd be playing guitar, it was one of those things I picked up where I learned his specific style
Right.
of how he plays and really learned how to adapt that into my style.
Yeah.
So I can always credit Jimmy Page with that.
And I think for you and I, this could be a conversation for another day, but
Yeah.
greatest band of all time. You're in the Led Zeppelin camp and I'm in the Beatles camp,
Which is respectable.
because I feel there's more influence. So
Yeah,
I think we
yeah.
kind of go a 1A and 1B.
I feel Beatles has more influence on genres outside of rock.
Yes,
You know what I mean? But Zeppelin has
absolutely.
more influence interior.
Yeah,
In terms of classic
and
rock.
I have a McCartney. People would be surprised that McCartney would be there in terms of my top 5 in terms of bassist.
No, he's a good bass
he's an
player.
amazing bassist.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
And if you think about Wings, I really think he was the musical genius behind
Yeah.
that, which I wouldn't have said at 17, but as I got older. So your number 1, before we reveal this, this is a number 1 that you and I would agree on.
Yeah. It's across the board, you know?
Yeah, this is a number 1 that, when I exposed you to this individual,
It's absolutely
you
mind-blowing.
gravitated to him, but there were some elements that you didn't gravitate to,
Yeah.
but then later on you gravitated. So you're number 1.
Yeah, Eddie Van Halen. I'm just going to straight up say it, you know what I mean? Like, from a rock aspect, you usually think of rock as a lot of people think of it as very loud music, you know what I mean? But when you listen to Van Halen, right, there's a lot of little subtleties in when they're playing, you know what I mean, in the
Yeah.
middle of the song, and it's like, wow, I don't get how they can make this sound so big for like a 3-piece band.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
playing in a vocalist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one thing I think of Eddie Van Halen, and even not just of a musical influence, but in terms of sheer guitar playing, you know what I mean? A lot of intricacies like tapping and hammer-ons and all that, you can credit that to Eddie Van Halen, and even towards of like the metal influence, right?
Right.
A lot of metal guitarists can gravitate towards Van Halen. I just think Eddie had such a huge influence in so many genres.
I know this was going to become a top 5, but I've talked about Bonham already. I think Alex does not get the credit.
Oh, as a drummer? Yeah,
Like,
Hot for Teacher, like we were talking about the other day.
Yeah,
you know?
the double bass drums,
Yeah,
like in Hot for
yeah,
Teacher,
yeah.
right? Like we were like, is this a
Crazy.
machine or is him going? So I think he was
It sounds almost like a
incredible.
drum machine, as you were saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think Eddie for me, I think it was tough when he died, because it was one of those things where like I remember having 1984, and I remember like just playing that on cassette back to back
Over and over.
Like when I played it for you, I was like, I know every track, right?
Yeah,
I
off
knew,
the record.
Girl Gone Bad. Girl Gone
Drop
Bad.
Dead Legs,
Yeah, Drop
everything
Dead
like
Legs.
that, yeah.
Like just knew the album, right? So I think when there are times when somebody dies like that, it's like a piece
Just
of
a
your
shock.
nostalgia,
Yeah.
And I think we kind of we started playing some Van Halen and going
Yeah.
deep into Van Halen, and then I got into fights with social media and people with, I'm like Sammy Hagar, as it relates to Van Halen. There's no Van Halen without David Lee Roth.
No.
But it was one of those things though that, like we listened to it and we really appreciated, and missed him from that particular perspective.
Even thinking about it now is weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, to think that he's passed away, even like seeing him live, I was pretty young. It was great. Like I remember as we were going to Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth, like my mom was like, we're going to a Van Halen concert, right? And I was like, first of all, who's singing, right?
So see, I'm not
you know
the
what I
only
mean?
one.
Yeah. There's a difference even in terms of when I was playing his stuff on guitar, right? I realized like when Sammy Hagar took over the band, most of Van Halen stuff, their guitars and basses are down-tuned, right? To go for a more like hard rock kind of tone, right?
Again, the crunchiness.
The crunchiness, right, of the sound. But then when you go to play Sammy Hagar stuff, it's mostly normal tuned or even up-tuned, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a difference in terms of music overall.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, I really appreciated about Eddie is when he was playing, it was such joy.
Yeah.
And it was effortless.
You could feel it.
And I would compare, like Kim Deal, who's, from the Pixies.
Bass player,
One of my favorite bass players, top 5. Like we would go to Pixies concerts. I think I've been to like 5 or 6 Pixies concerts.
Yeah, I've seen them too,
and,
quite a few times.
When we went for the 25th anniversary of Doolittle. But I would be, well, you see how I am. Like when I go to a concert, like Interpol, like I used to be fixated on Carlos.
Yeah,
just
the whole
watching
time.
him play, right? So like with Kim, I'm fixated on her, and she's just killing the bass and just looking around and smiling. And I'm like, how cool is this, right?
Yeah.
She's not taking herself too seriously, but she's just doing her thing, right? And
Yeah.
that was always one thing about Eddie. So performances.
Okay.
You've done your share of shows. After you tell me about your memorable performances, I'll kind of share some embarrassing stories.
Yeah.
In terms of your performances, I don't know if you
Okay.
remember some of them, but
You could just let me know. We'll see. We'll see as I go.
All right. So memorable performance, and in terms of you jamming out.
So I actually have 2 I'll go through, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So a first one, if I'm going in chronological order, is this was when I was in about grade 7 or 8, right? There was a little restaurant that opened up near my grandmother's house called North of Mexico, and we knew the owner.
This is where you had your 17th birthday?
Yeah, where I had my 17th
Okay.
birthday. Yeah. So we were there, beforehand. We go there to eat every once in a while, and he told me he was having an open jam night. You know what I mean? I decided, okay, like I'm going to show up and put my guitar in the trunk of the car just in case I see any opportunity to just pull it out and play, you know what I mean? Like my main intention wasn't to just like play up there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then my mom had known the drummer from the band, one of the
Okay.
bands that was playing there. So he said to me, he's like, hey, like you want to step up and play? And the singer and the other guitar player are like, I don't know, like he seems small, you know what I mean? Like how much does he really know in terms of playing? So I brought my guitar up there and we played Sunshine of Your Love by Cream, and it was just a huge experience to go up with musicians I'd never played with
Right.
in my life.
Yeah.
And just have something in common like that and just go through a whole set list of like 3 songs, and that was just huge for me, like just
Right on.
an open jam.
Yeah. So shout out to North of Mexico if
Yeah, Chico's listening.
We're looking for sponsors. So I'm kidding. We're not sponsors, not yet. Second one.
Second one would be my first show at high school. St. Mary's, big shout out to St. Mary's. This was a huge one because going into St. Mary's was one of those things where I only knew one person going in to the high school, right? Because I started out in Scarborough, then I went to Pickering, right? In terms of schools, and going there, gravitated towards a good buddy of mine, Dylan, who was a guitar player as well. I'd seen him at the Head Start program, wearing guitar shirts and everything like that. So I was like, okay, this is somebody I could vibe with,
Both Xbox buddies.
Both Xbox buddies too.
Yeah,
we had a
yeah.
lot in common. Star Wars, Marvel, like
Yeah,
me and
yeah,
Dylan
yeah.
just had a lot in common. You know what I mean? A lot of
Yeah.
people used to say we looked the same
Yes.
at the time too.
Definitely.
So yeah, that was a big thing. Me and Dylan getting together and jamming out. We realized, wow, like we even have a lot of similarities music wise, So we had a Christmas concert, good little Christmas concert, and 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
So yeah, we had about maybe 2 or 3 practices before the show, so we were kind of ready, but not super ready. And we played a few rock renditions of Christmas songs. You know what I mean? And we played some guitar solos too. Like I did Heartbreaker by Led Zeppelin, and he did Eruption by Eddie Van Halen. You know what I mean? We went into that, and it was just like, wow, just so much good reception from the crowd. You know what I mean? In terms of us
Yeah.
playing guitar, and it really felt like I had a place in high school instead of being an outlier because I didn't have very many friends. And yeah, it was an introduction to the music teachers and how working with them would be everything like that.
So I would say my two most memorable. I can't remember at Leger which year it was.
What happened? I'll
Well,
probably elaborate.
I saw you prior to your performance.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was a talent show towards the end of the
Yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah.
I saw you sticking all of these guitar picks in your pocket, and I was like, well, why does he need all these guitar picks? Like, he's playing one song.
Probably thinking in case I drop one, but why does he need so many?
Well, that wasn't it. And I don't know if you remember this, but in terms of the school, there was like grade ones and all of the SKs and JKs in the front. And after the concert, you actually you reached into your pocket and you started throwing picks into the crowd.
And that went into high school as well. I still did that, you know what I mean?
I just looked at your mom and I was like, oh my goodness. Like we have spawned a rock god. The second one was Christmas concert. I can't remember what year it was of Leger.
Leger or
sorry,
St. Mary's?
of St. Mary's.
St. Mary's, yeah.
And you know, your teacher, she will.
This was the same one that I was talking about.
She will remain nameless.
Yeah.
To protect the innocent or not so innocent. You know, she told you and Dylan that you had to be on for
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And I remember how upset you were because the teachers were the ones who were playing and taking up all of the time.
They went up for longer than that. They went up for
Yeah.
at least 10 minutes, you know what I mean? It's like, this is a high school talent show.
Yeah. So, you know, so I remember you got on stage, you did your 5 minutes, and then you did something I did not expect. You went to the crowd and you said, do you guys want some more?
Yeah.
And they lost it. And then you played for another 5 minutes.
It wasn't 5 minutes.
You was.
Okay.
As your music teacher is looking at you and waving you off the stage.
Yeah.
So, you know, your mom and I, as it relates, you know, we have very different personalities. You know,
Yeah.
I'm an A personality. She's getting more of an A personality these days.
Oh,
But,
I've
you know,
noticed.
I would say she's, you know, the calm one. You know, I just looked at her and I said, you know, you go talk to the teacher. Because if I go and talk to her, you know, it would have been a different conversation.
Yeah.
So, you know, we got home. And I said to you, I said, you know, hey, you know, why did you do that? Like, you know, and the thing about it is I wanted to understand why you broke a rule.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, when your answer to me, I couldn't argue with it. You were like, Papa, like I just got up there and I just started feeling it. Like I got just fed off the crowd, and it
You
was
know what I
just
mean?
like,
I've never had a crowd that big and that reactive, you know what I mean? Because in elementary school, it's like, how much do people know about music? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? When you get to high school, everyone was like, whoa, this is crazy, you know? They never seen anything like it, so.
Yeah, so it was go time, and I was like, I know what it feels like when I'm playing football and I'm in the zone. It's go time.
It's there, you know?
So you know, so I really appreciated that, and that was nothing from there. So, in terms of your playing, in terms of St. Mary's, did you play guitar in St. Mary's?
Not for band class. I didn't play guitar. I decided to give the guitar to Dylan just because I wanted more influence. I wanted to pick up the bass just to get myself more familiar with that, right?
Okay.
Instead of having guitar like all the way up here and bass all the way down here, I wanted to have them at a pretty good level of consistency in terms of my playing styles, right?
Do you remember what caused you to pick up the bass? Do you remember the story?
Not really, no.
Okay, so I'll tell you.
Okay.
It was your first band camp, right? And you know, you were solid with your guitar, and you were going in there saying, you know, I'm gonna set the world on fire.
Yeah.
You went in there, and I picked you up, and you were so dejected, and I was like, what's going on?
Really?
You were like, everybody in there played more than one instrument. I was the only one with one instrument.
Yeah.
And then from there, you were like, I'm gonna learn the bass. Right, and like you decided to just pick up the bass.
Yeah.
And you know, and you know, from that standpoint, you know, I saw the evolution of your music.
Yeah.
Right, because you know, when you talk about, you know, and we talked about pivotal moments, right? So you know, it's kind of, you know, me and your mom have an influence on you, and you know, as it relates to, you know, you're biracial. You know, we never pushed one or the other on you.
No, not
right?
at all.
It was your mom kind of saying, you know, hey, here's who you are. And it was me saying, you know, hey, yeah, here's who you are, but, you know, here's some stuff that could potentially happen to you because of your features, right?
Yeah.
So I think you understood it, but you didn't internalize it. So, you know, why don't you talk about, the movie that we went to that really kind of started you on the journey in terms of you understanding
Black
your
culture.
blackness?
Yeah. Birth of a Nation was a huge one. So that was one of the first movies I've seen about like black activism and stuff like that, And my dad had taken me to the movie, and it was in a theater format, and it was just like, it almost seemed like a play, almost how the theater was set up. I remember in there, and it was just such a growing experience, because I knew a bit about the abolitionists and all that, and slavery and all that, but I didn't know from a first-hand story perspective of Nat Turner, like his life journey, you know what I mean, and how segregated, and how it was so blatant that people were racist and prejudiced back then, you know what I mean? I thought it was more under the cover, so that was a big thing, and seeing how emotional everyone got in the crowd too, you know what I mean? There were people crying in there,
really
it
tense.
was a lot, and the scenes were so graphic, and I was like, I can't believe this stuff actually happened, you know what I mean? It was just a really pivotal moment, and seeing how black people kind of couldn't sit to the side, they had to step up and stand for what was right, and how uniting as a culture could really make a difference, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of Nat Turner, I was so excited when that, actually came out, because, I was always reading.
You're saying you're a big Nat Turner guy, right?
Yeah, because, I mean, he was the one who had the first slave rebellion, and on a colony, on a plantation, and he paid dearly for it, but, he's forever in our hearts as it relates to our ancestors. But you're right, we were in that movie theater, and, you had, older, black people.
Well, everyone was pretty much older than me, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you had young kids in the back who were screaming at the theater, like screaming at the movie screen, right? So it was a pretty tense moment. And, I kind of let you sit with it for a couple of days. That was a Saturday. Yeah. And I remember you either coming home on the Tuesday or the Monday and letting me know that you had signed up for Black History Month.
Oh, the committee at school, right? Yeah, because it was just a huge realization of my culture and where I came from, you know what I mean? All this has led up to where I am now. Yeah. When you think about it.
Yeah, so, talk about, the fact that, talk about how you made that transition from, listening to rock, and I used to always tease you because when a slow song used to come on, you'd be like, turn that off.
Yeah, it's just too boring for me at the time,
like Animal from like the Muppet Show. You're like, more music, louder. Yeah. So, so kind of take me through your journey of, listening to pure rock, and then where you started to embrace,
hip hop, alternative hip hop, and stuff like that. Well, a big thing about it actually was that Tribe Called Quest album. I remember that was a big startup, the most recent one.
Okay.
I forget what it was called, but I remember you showing it to me when it was like grade 9. And I just kept listening to it, and I was like, wow, hip-hop can be more than just bars, you know what I mean? Like, this is some real instrumentation and just stuff that I'd never heard before, because I had heard rap music, but more like the mainstream stuff, and stuff you played for me in the car too. Yeah. But I never really analyzed it, and I spent a lot of my time shoveling the snow outside and listening to that Tribe Called Quest album, and I just thought to myself, like, wow, in terms of sheer talent, and not just rapping wise, just musically, this is very impressive, you know what I mean? I heard a lot of different samples from the 70s, right? And you showed me a lot of samples, and I went back and seen some of those samples and realized, like, this is what made music how it is today. Yeah. You know what I mean? And just listening to that inspired me again to play more of the bass, you know what I mean? Because in high school was one of those things where I really started to gravitate towards different genres. And I don't know if that's just because I was going through a phase of listening to different music, or my friends listening to music and picking up music off them, but I feel like it was a pivotal moment for me in terms of discovering different genres was high school. Right. And I feel like getting to play bass in high school too, between being exposed to bass for band class, right? And the music you were showing me more of at home was a big influence in my bass playing and just listening to that kind of music in general. Yeah. And, I would say that, we're going to talk about your biggest inspiration. But, if we talk about your biggest inspiration, I just really thought of it, that, he really encompasses. Well, not just my music, but what I kind of stand for.
Yes. So he encompasses a lot of, kind of who you are and the music that you listen to. So you stand for him pretty hard. So, who's your biggest inspiration?
I'm going to have to say Pharrell Williams at the end of the day. Okay. There's just so much about him. Like, I remember that day when you showed me NERD, right? Yeah. His standalone, I would say it's a rock kind of funk rap band. It was just like so different in terms of both of my worlds colliding.
Yeah.
When I hear the instrumentation was rock, but it had some funk in it too. Like, I don't know if I ever told you, but in the guitar and bass playing, I hear a lot of Lenny Kravitz in the stuff he plays. You know what I mean? In terms of the guitar riffs, and I thought like, wow, this is so interesting how he's rapping and singing and all the different melodies over his music. You know what I mean? And that caused me to look more into not Nerd, but Pharrell as a person. You know what I mean? More as a producer, because as I remember you were saying, how does this guy just get credited for Happy when he's got so much other stuff? You know what I mean? And I just started looking into his discography and stuff that he produced, and I realized, like, this guy's done music for between Beyonce to Justin Timberlake to stuff like Nerd, right? He's gone to Lil Uzi and all different genres of music, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I can really relate to this because of how many genres I listen to. You know what I mean? In terms of him producing for all those genres. And then I got into looking at his clothing, and I thought it was really cool, and his art, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. And it was just a big inspiration to me.
And I'll tell you, I mean, you know, this is probably something for another podcast, but, you know, Virginia Beach, where he grew up, there must be something in the water there.
Well, yeah, his music festival is called Something in the Water, right?
Yeah.
It was based out of there.
Because you know, I'll probably have somebody next week in terms of my music people come and correct me. But, you know, if I'm not mistaken, you know, it was, you know, Teddy Riley coming out of there in terms of, you know, Guy and what he was producing. It was Timberland coming out of there. And even from a sports standpoint, you know, Michael Vick and Allen Iverson, like
pure talent
coming out of there. Just to think that there are people surrounded with all of these individuals who were so talented in that space. I remember when I heard the debut album, you know, Nerd's debut album.
In Search of, right?
Yeah, it blew me away.
Well, because it's so different. You've never heard anything like it before. When I was listening to it, I was like, even I remember I sent my girlfriend when we started talking the song Tape You, right?
Yeah.
Off Nerd, and she was
Wait a minute, which version did you send her?
The not the YouTube one, the Spotify
the clean
one.
version?
The clean version,
Okay.
yes,
You
of
had
course.
me worried for a minute.
And
for those of you, just listen to Tape You, but I would say listen to it on earphones. Do not listen to it on Bluetooth or loud.
yeah, there's a certain segment at the end of the song, you know.
It's pretty good though. Anyway, so
But yeah, anyway, I was saying I sent her that song, and she's like, "Wow, like I've never heard anything like this before in terms of the instrumentation and the mix of rapping and vocals, and even like for anybody that does go and listen to Tape You, the drums in that song are phenomenal. The drums are crazy,
especially
in that song.
the last part of that song.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
And everybody knows I love outros, but the last part of that song, like
in the Spotify version.
Yes, of course. I could just put that on loop, right? Because it just escalates.
Yeah. Definitely gonna listen to it on the car ride home. Yeah, it's a must.
So, you know, and it's interesting because, you know, my favorite artist in terms of rap is Tyler. And, you know, one of the things Tyler said growing up, you know, is like he was more into In Search of than Illmatic in terms of Nas.
Yeah.
Which, you know, because I'm much older than Tyler, like there was no In Search of, there was Illmatic, right? But yeah, I could definitely see if I was in that genre and In Search of, you know, was after Illmatic and I had In Search of, I would have definitely gravitated to that, right?
It's more as even what you were saying with Tyler, right? Gravitating towards him being himself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not necessarily caring about the rap kind of image, you know what I mean? That's what I feel like Pharrell was a lot of that, you know, like a lot of skateboarding too. Yeah. A lot of the skate culture was in his mentality, you know, and just overall being yourself, you know, I feel like I could identify with him because with me musically, I don't really identify the most with a certain genre. Like I can go from listening to Elton John to Led Zeppelin to Metallica to Mariah Carey, yeah, thank you. To Nas, Tyler the Creator, you know, Tame Impala. There's just so much you could cover in terms of musical ground.
So would you say that, you know, in terms of your musical journey, along with your journey of racial identity, like where would you say that you are now?
I would say in terms of musically, like what in terms of what I listen to, right?
Well, no, just you know, you've gone on both journeys, right? From both rock to hip hop, you know, and more black music, and you know, you talked about your own identity in terms of identifying with being more white than being more black. Yeah. Where are you now in terms of, you know, your identity?
I would say I'm more. It depends on the mood. You know what I mean? I can more find my solace in artists like Lenny Kravitz, right? Who are primarily black.
Biracial,
yeah, right.
And but, Slash, one of your favorites.
Slash, also biracial, you know. And their music just has that influence of funk, you know, and just that feel, but it's also got that rock influence. So I just love groups like that. Like I remember I was talking to my friend Anthony, who makes music, the other day, right? And he was talking about one of his biggest inspirations are MJ and Kid Cudi, right?
Okay.
And he was talking about that. He's like, who do you feel your main inspirations musically in terms of like if you could sound like any artist or familiar, who would it be? And I instantly said Lenny. Because he's just got so much different repertoire of music.
Yeah.
And his sound is just so identifiable, you know, and I feel like he never gets the credit for what he deserves.
And,
you know?
and I think, you know, I was around in 89, 90 when Lenny came out, and, you know, he was before his time. Like, you know, people are like, who's this
100%.
cornball dress, you know, in hippy dippy clothes coming out with this music? Nobody's into listening to this.
Yeah.
But, you know, I told you, but Let
Just
Love
born
Rule.
on the wrong
like,
time.
Yeah.
You
like
know?
Let Love Rule. The first album was raw, but it was so good.
For sure.
And, you know, I would say Lenny's first 3 albums, you know, I would put up there. After that, I kind of dropped off, and I was on.
So his Mama
stuff.
Said, is that one of the first 3?
Yeah, like Are You Gonna Go My Way? And Mama Said, and you know, and Let Love Rule. Like
Even
those.
Circus was that an album? No,
Pushing of it.
there were some tracks on that.
I hear
but
you.
Yeah.
The actual song Circus, very Beatles.
Yeah.
But you know, that was like, you know, the holy trinity for me in terms of Lenny.
For sure.
You know, I'm happy that your mother isn't here, because, you know, she would probably put pause on me at this point in terms of fighting words, because, you know, of her love for Lenny.
Yeah,
on so many levels.
Facts.
So you know, I want to say, you know, we're going to talk about one last topic, but you know, I want to talk about the transition to this last topic, because, you know, we talked initially about you know, me having a son. Me wanting a son who played sports. You know, I would say that the moments that we have enjoyed in terms of music festivals, and in terms of music and just connecting and listening to the same type of music, and you teach me more music now than I teach you.
What, like sending you music?
Yeah,
and stuff
in
like
terms
that?
of new sounds, right? And just like, you know, introduced me to Playboy Cardi, like,
You know
where
what I mean?
I wouldn't have, you know,
One of those things you wouldn't have really discovered on your own, you know what I mean?
So, you know, I think this has been, you know, an incredible journey. You know, having looked back, I would definitely not trade the fact that you didn't watch sports and didn't play sports for the times that we've spent together. Because I think it's been incredible bonding moments.
Huge bonding
for
experiences,
us,
you know what I
right?
mean? We found so many new artists out of that, right? Remember, like, we went to Lollapalooza that first time, and every time, me and my dad, before we go to a festival, we search up all the artists that we see on the list, right? And we plot out what days we're going to go see what and everything like that. And we found, like, Baroness, Rainwolf, just some pretty sweet bands off of that, you know, and artists in general.
Yeah, and who Baroness was when you got the set list.
The set list, I got their set list after the show.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Cool.
So, you know, to that point in terms of music festivals, if you want to talk about your favorite performance, I didn't want to put you on the spot in terms of, because that's so hard. We've seen
everyone from like Weezer to Kendrick to M83, Phoenix. Like,
So what I will ask is, post pandemic, festival comes out.
Oh boy.
I want Friday, Saturday, Sunday
Headliners.
Okay.
So I'm going to start out Friday, right? By saying Tyler, the Creator, right?
Okay.
And I could say that due to the fact that I've seen Tyler quite a few times now, probably like four or five times, probably.
We saw him in Montreal, in Brooklyn, Toronto twice. Montreal twice?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure, but take it or leave it. Like, he's one of those artists that when you see him live, it's not just a musical performance. You know what I mean? It's more of like the set pieces are beautiful, and depending on what album he's got out, it's like a different theme, you know?
Yeah.
And even he would break up the silence with comedy, you know what I mean? Like skits with his background and that. So I just think it's a nice light concert to get the Friday started, you know, hype, bear hype, you know what I mean? And just, it's got that beautiful aspect to it too, with the set pieces and the songs. And I just think it's a great way to start a festival off would be Tyler.
And ironically, his Igor tour, if I'm not mistaken, was the last concert we went to. I think it was September 17th, 2019. at Scotia, which
It was Jaden Smith was there, Gold Link.
Yes.
I went with my friend Brandon. That was his first
that was
concert.
his first concert.
You know
How
what I mean?
about that for his first
So
concert
crazy,
to be
man.
to be Tyler?
Yeah.
So I initially had Solange.
Yeah.
From
it was
my
your
choice.
Friday.
But that was only because I'd never seen her. And I absolutely love her.
Well, I also have one that I'm thinking about too that I haven't seen before that I'm going to put on my list. So
for Friday?
yeah, no, not for Friday, just for Sunday.
Okay, so
Right,
cool.
so,
So
yeah.
and then I said the Tyler thing because I'm like, seen Tyler. Are you gonna say Thundercat? Anyway, so I've seen Tyler so many times, but I was like, you know what? Every time I see him, you know what songs are coming. You heard
Still
them before.
hits every
and
time, I
yes.
swear to God.
So yes,
Oh my
absolutely. I would like to start my weekend off with Tyler.
And he remixes stuff too. When we were seeing him, remember when he did that Jay-Z song from 444? When we
Yes,
saw him and it was like,
yes.
whoa, I've never heard of this before.
Absolutely.
It was mind-blowing. I was like, holy.
So Saturday night.
Saturday night, I'm going to credit this to the best live performance I've ever seen. I'm going to have to say Anderson .Paak.
Yeah.
Just due to the fact that it's like, I remember when we saw him, what was it, Montreal, right? Oshiega, that day we went for like one day. It was like, at a music festival, you have to understand that there's so many different artists performing there. There's like rappers, rock stars, you know what I mean? And you have your certain crowds who go see the rap artists, the rock artists, alternative artists. But Anderson .Paak was one of those artists that everyone turned up to. Like, remember we saw, it was such a big crowd there,
Yeah.
and everyone was there, and everyone was just getting down to the music, regardless of who they were, you know what I mean? And he's just got such a wide repertoire of like R&B, funk, you know what I mean? Just even pure rap, you know what I mean, with Bubbling and Glowed Up.
Yeah.
He's just got such a big repertoire, and I just think a Saturday night, that would be the perfect way to just hit it off. And he's one of those artists I would almost follow around on tour, just seeing him everywhere he performs, just because every time I've seen it, it's just...
Yeah, and I know
phenomenal.
he's going to get caught up now in the Bruno Mars jet stream. So I know Andy's now going to be part of the Unwashed. I'm fine with that.
What do you mean the Unwashed?
I'm happy for you, Andy, that you now are going to have people who really don't have appreciation for music. Yeah, I'm a music snob, but who are now going to be listening to Anderson .Paak and, not remember.
I don't think he'll go commercial, though.
We'll see. But either way, I'm happy for him because I have an incredible library. The same way like you two, when they kind of crossed over.
Yeah, man.
I was like, okay, you know what?
I'll take this.
Boy War October, Unforgettable Fire. I'm good with that.
Well, you can't speak too soon because everything he put out today
I
is
know.
fire,
And
man.
See, that is the thing
Everything
that
he put
drives
today
me
is
crazy
fire.
about him. Every concert I've seen has gotten better. Like
Facts.
some concerts that I see, like Interpol or Radiohead, I wouldn't go see them anymore. They've
Seen them
just
too many
leveled
times.
off for me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, in terms of him, and I think what amazes me, and this is where I was like, this dude is a triple threat. In one song where he can sing and then jump on the drums and then rap in the same song.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how is this
Nobody else is
possible?
doing this. When you really look about it, nobody else is doing this.
And
You
again,
know?
he's doing it effortless. He has a smile on his face. He's at ease. He's just part of the music,
band too.
right?
The whole band. Like
Yes.
I remember we were seeing the Free Nationals. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, man, this is just crazy. And it's I don't know how he can go from hype to just like a smooth song, and it sounds
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
It sounds different when you see him live. Like that's why I always tell people, it's like Anderson .Paak, you can listen to him and say, okay, this guy's good, but seeing him live is a totally different story. Like,
Yeah. That's a great Saturday night hype.
yeah, for sure.
So Sunday, we're winding down,
man.
concert, ready to head home. Who would be your Sunday?
I got to go with Tame Impala, man. Even though
Kev.
I've never seen them live, I got to go with them.
Yeah.
Just due to the fact that it's like, oh, man. I don't even know where to start with them. They've just been one of my main artists I've been listening to
Yeah.
all year. And it's just they have a very chill repertoire. And I know they would end off with The Lesser, I Know The Better. That would be the final song they would end off with. And I feel like that would just be a perfect send-off.
Yeah, so my relationship with Tame Impala has been one that's been interesting because, when they came out, they're like, psychedelic kind of prog rocky kind of
Yeah.
thing.
I've always been into it personally. Whatever I've heard from them, I'll be like, this is some good material.
I know, and I've always skimmed it. And then the more I heard you listening to it, I was like, you know what? I better kind of...
What's that song? It Might Be Time, when you were listening to the drums and that?
Yes,
I remember
when
losing
that
it. I
first
was like,
came
oh
out. I
my
was playing
God,
it so
man.
much I was in the Jeep. It was on repeat.
Holy.
I was surprised I didn't get a speeding ticket. So
Like Barricade by Interpol. when you
don't
speak
don't
to-
tell anybody that story. So yeah, I would say that the Tame Impala for sure, and I've got nostalgic for concerts to where I've actually like pulled up like on YouTube like Tame Impala concerts because I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be right now.
Facts.
So you said you had a honorable mention or somebody that you were considering?
Honorable mention for someone that could take that position. I would say if we're going for a common theme here of those artists, is this based on people I've seen before or just anybody?
No, you said you had somebody alternative that you were thinking about in terms of the list that you had initially. If you can't think about it,
I can't quite remember.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Julian, this has been great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, no problem.
For the initial podcast. I'm looking to see you come back.
100%.
What are some of the things that you want to come back and talk to us about in terms of the group?
Honestly, so I would say pop culture in terms of, right, Star Wars and Marvel are huge things of mine. I wish you were honestly more into video games so we could have them on. Me and one of my dad's friends and my friends in Montreal.
All the way out here,
But yeah, no, I'd be down for anything in terms of Marvel or DC or even Star Wars, just movies in general, they made an impact on me would just be awesome. And it was just a pleasure being on here. I felt like this went pretty smoothly, like a normal conversation we've had.
That's we were supposed to say that off camera.
Oh, okay.
I'm kidding. Yeah, it's been great. So, thank you very much for joining us. To our one listener, Baxter, probably.
For now.
He's probably the only one who's listening.
Right?
Yeah. So, I would like to give a special shout out to Chris. Chris, actually, Julian and I had a really funny joke because, and we didn't know if we were gonna get in trouble for this, but we wanted to start calling you Jamie and say, Jamie, pull it up. So from time to time, we might just be joking. We won't actually pull anything up, but if we start talking about something in terms of, hey, remember that Tame Impala concert? Jamie, pull that up. So, I really want to thank 1990 Studios and Chris. This has come from, ideation to making it happen pretty fast. I really appreciate it. So, look up 1990 because this is going to be our home every week. And as we're looking to make this podcast grow, we're making it make this studio grow and put this studio on the map. So, thanks a lot. And again, please, next week, you're going to see some new content from us. You're going to see our really raucous crew, of people that, are really cool in terms of talking. So, thank you very much. Signing off for this week.